I'm Arline Fisch, and I'm what I would call an artist jeweler and an educator. My career, which has spanned some 50 years, has been based on those two things, that I work as an artist part of the time, and I work as a teacher of other artists in the other part of my professional life. I grew up in New York City, and from the time I was 12, I was allowed to, we lived on Long Island, I was allowed to go to Manhattan with a school friend on Saturdays. We often went to the theater in the afternoon to a matinee on Saturday, but in the morning we would go to a museum. But even before that, I was a Girl Scout, and Girl Scout troops go on field trips, and we spent a lot of time at the Museum of Natural History in New York. It's one of my favorite museums. And also, as I grew older, to the Metropolitan. And both of those museums have incredible collections of artifacts in addition to the paintings and sculpture at the Met. And I was always attracted to the more ethnographic aspects of both museums. And at the Museum of Natural History, there are just lots of exhibitions of cultures from around the world, exotic cultures. And then at the Metropolitan, there is this fantastic collection of Egyptian artifacts. When I started to make jewelry, because I didn't have very much technical information, I worked, as most people do, rather small, but my vision was always those things that I had seen in the Egyptian collection. And that's always been my vision. I want to do things that are really dramatic, like those things. And I understand, and have always understood, of course, that the reason they remain is that they were funerary objects. They weren't necessarily worn. But when I went to Egypt and visited the Valley of the Nobles in these small little tombs, which at the time you were allowed to go into, I'm not sure you can anymore, there were these wonderful paintings of people wearing these incredible jewels. Not necessarily of precious materials. Sometimes they were made of real flowers, or they were made of clay beads, but the format was extraordinary. I mean, these giant collars and beautiful headdresses. And it's always what I've thought about as jewelry. I mostly direct my work towards exhibitions. It's only sold in art galleries, but often before I put it out to be sold, I exhibit it in various kinds of competitive and invitational exhibitions. It's a way of exposing the work to a larger audience, not necessarily for commercial purposes, but because I want to know how people respond to it, what people think about it, and whether it has some impact in the way people think about ornamentation. I do exhibit my work in lots of places in the world, in Asia and in Europe, and I've always done that because the opportunities were there, and it's a way of also putting my work into the context of the field to see what other people are doing and how my work might fit into the general style or the general approach to ornamentation in the Western world. The important thing is that they're comfortable to wear, and they're attention-getting, and I think that's why people wear jewelry. They don't wear jewelry to be a wallflower or to have people not notice. People wear jewelry sometimes for very personal reasons, secretly, but I think in most cases women wear jewelry in order to be noticed, and so I try to make things that are very noticeable. And normally I only make one-of-a-kind things because I'm not interested in making multiples. I think it was actually in 1971. I was having an exhibition in New York, and a publisher came up to me and said, "Would you like to write a book?" And I thought, what a stupid question. Of course not. Why would I want to write a book? He said, think about it. Don't just say no. I came home and I thought about it. And I thought, well, I could write down what I know about this joint technology, and I could do a little research on it, and maybe that would be interesting. What I've learned is the first time I did the book, and it came out in '75, I thought this has had no impact. I mean, I never saw any work coming that seemed to come out of this information. But it's been totally different with the second edition. People have the use of metal in things like weaving and crocheting, not just amongst people that I've taught, but just amongst people in general, artists in general, has burgeoned, and that's kind of exciting. So maybe I'll do a third one, and which will focus on the work of other people rather than my own. It has been important for me to learn new technical things throughout my career in order to enhance the student opportunity. I teach undergraduate students in both, or I did teach undergraduate students in both metal and weaving. When we teach graduate students, of course, they come with a much more directed sense of their own personal aesthetic and of their own personal direction. So working with graduate students is really a mentoring kind of program.
Right, so I'd have to
It's always a fine line between what I'm doing in my own work and what I'm teaching the student. I've never wanted the students to do my work. I don't think anyone who teaches wants that to happen. I also teach workshops, short-term, intensive things, and that's a whole other kind of teaching. Although I enjoy those workshops and I find them exciting and stimulating, they don't offer the same kind of reward to a teacher because you have no follow-through. Working with undergraduate students whom you see develop from knowing nothing to being able to produce a portfolio to enter graduate school is really incredibly exciting. And then to work with graduate students and oversee their development, and then to follow them through an emerging career is also incredibly rewarding. Teaching has always been very important to me, and it has been a very rewarding life for me.
Like a cable? Or?
Yeah, no, something stiff. I like working on things that appeal to me. I may have a theme that I'm working on, or I may be working in a particular direction, and pieces kind of grow, evolve one out of another. Sometimes I draw them first, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just make pleated material and then play with it to see what it will do. This little machine is called a fluter, and it makes pleats, which I love to use, and I use them a lot for making fans. So these are all fans that actually work. This is a bracelet, but if it's an incredibly hot day, you can take it off and actually use it as a fan. And you don't have to take the necklace off, you can just slip it off, and there you have it, a fan. This was a sample that I had done a long time ago, but I never made anything out of it. And suddenly I saw it as a Greek column. And it's going to be a scent column. That is, it's hollow, and you can take the top off. And inside, there's a dried herb. Right now it's sage, but my intention is to put rosemary in there because I like that smell better. And it has a wonderful presence just standing there. I kind of like that because to make a piece of jewelry and then have it sit only in a drawer is kind of too bad. You don't remember that you own it. And I kind of like the idea that it can have another existence. I look at a lot of jewelry from other cultures, both ancient and contemporary ethnic cultures. And I'm always impressed by the freedom of their ornamentation, that they're not constrained to pinning things on clothing. But I once saw a woman walking through a market with a bunch of bananas on her head as a hat. It was absolutely wonderful. And, and so I think about that, and I think about the drama of larger scale ornaments that move with the body. This kind of soft material that I can knit or crochet gives me the opportunity to work in that manner, to think about exotic kinds of situations on the body for ornamentation. So this, instead of being a bracelet that just fits comfortably around the wrist, actually can go all the way up over the elbow and be worn very comfortably. Can't put a coat on, but in this particular instance, that's not so important. I don't know that California has had any direct influence on my work, but I think there have been ways in which my work has changed because I live in California. For one thing, I can make large pieces that people don't have to put coats on over. I mean, that's always a problem when I make a large piece and someone says, well, I would love to wear this, but I'd have to put it on when I get there. And I think, yes, and is that hard? That's what I do. I sometimes carry the work with me and I put it on when I get there. I don't think that's so odd. I only make jewelry for women. I tried making jewelry for men. They don't wear it. I made a wonderful evening belt, cummerbund, and it was years before I finally convinced somebody to wear it. And it now is owned by somebody, but he's outgrown it. He doesn't fit into it anymore. So it's in the exhibition, but I don't think anybody's ever going to wear it again. But that kind of destroyed my interest in making things for men. They just don't have the opportunity to wear jewelry in the way that I want it to be worn. I really want jewelry to be dramatic and exciting and sensuous, and that suits women far better than it suits men. So I tend to make everything for myself and then find other people to wear it. I was made a living treasure of California, which was a wonderful honor. One of 25 craftspeople who were so honored. And it was a program organized by a colleague who lives in Sacramento. And she had been to Japan and knew about the Japanese tradition of creating or declaring certain kinds of artists to be living treasures. Unfortunately, it's not an ongoing program. I wish it was, because I think it's an important way to honor artists